Morning, y'all. Today I'm gonna be tackling this oil leak that I've had in my truck for honestly since I've had the truck, which has been about a year and a few months. These trucks, 99 and 06, Chevy Silverado, Tahoes, Yukons, that kind of platform, is to have an oil leak eventually in their lifetime, which is normal, through wear and tear. But with that aside, these are very great motors. I have the 5.3 in my Silverado. I'm not gonna show you exactly how to take off the intake manifold, but here's where I'm at. You can look at other videos online that will show you a way better explanation that I can give you step by step. I just ain't got that time, guys, but I wanted to show you kind of my situation and explain to you what's been going on. Since I've had the truck, I gave it its first maintenance oil change when I took ownership of it, and I noticed a small leak. And at the time, I guess I just changed the oil pretty quick. I didn't think too much on inspecting around the transmission and all that good stuff under there. But I said, you know what, let me go ahead and change the drain plug, the old drain plug, and put a new washer. So I put that, still was leaking. I decided to tighten up some bolts under there, I guess around the transmission housing or whatever you call it. There's a couple bolts. Still was leaking, so I started to inspect up higher. In my case, I didn't notice my oil filter leaking, so I said, you know what, maybe the gasket that I put is good. Around the oil filter, there's this little there's a gasket. It's like an oval gasket that goes on some little plate. If y'all know what I'm talking about, you know what's up. So I checked around there, or sorry, a gasket. So I checked around there. There's no leak, and it looked like it was coming from more up above, but from the passenger side. And it wasn't coming up so high from the driver's side. It was more from the passenger. I also noticed that my starter bolts had oil on them. And people say, oh, just tighten that up. Not sure how that would help, but I've seen videos where you tighten up those bolts, maybe it can help out. I did that, still was leaking. And then I further inspected and found out that you can change the crankshaft position sensor. You got to remove the starter and it's above it. So I removed that because technically those O-rings tend to give out on the crankshaft and it could cause a leak, supposedly. Like I said, guys, I'm just trying to do the best I can with my truck, and I'm not a professional mechanic, but I know my way around the basics. Swapped that out, still had a leak. So I started inspecting up here, and I've realized a lot of people say that their camshaft position sensor, which is this guy right here, but these tend to leak as well, and the oil pressure sensor, which in my case, it looks pretty clean, guys. So I don't know if right before I took ownership of the truck, maybe someone tried swapping it out. And on these, it's a very tight space to try to swap those out without taking the intake, guys. So I don't know if maybe someone swapped it out, didn't tighten it enough, or forgot a washer, and they might have had like a slight leak coming out. That's one of the things I'll be swapping out. The next thing is the camshaft. That looks real dirty, so I don't know if that gave out. The intake manifold gasket, I'll be swapping that out as well, just to kind of clean all this up before I do. And knock sensors, I'll be swapping out knock sensors as well, because I do have a P0332 code. I have tried bypassing it. Supposedly you can cut one of the wires and splice it to the other one, the one that's good. There's YouTube videos on it. I've tried that trick, and I was still getting a low voltage input. Bank 2, I believe. Bank 2 is in the back, bank 1 is in the front. The trick with those also, guys, you want to test them before you take them home. Take your voltmeter and put it in ohms, and put the red pin on the top end, and put the black pin on the ground, like just the housing where the threads are. You should be getting an ohm reading from 94 to about 106. Guy on YouTube explained the ohms and the low and the high parameters on these knock sensors. So make sure you have a good knock sensor to start off with. Second, you want to have a good cables I'm sorry guys, I forget. Well, wiring harness, there you go. You want to have a good wiring harness to make sure that you don't have any issues through the wiring system itself. So yeah, I'll be swapping that out to get rid of that P0332. And the reason why is because I've noticed I'm getting low mileage. Like the truck drives fine. I believe there's no knock on this truck. Everything works as it should. It's just, I normally get on my setup with 33s and a leveling kit with 20-inch wheels. Normally when I reset the code and I drive about 70 miles an hour on the highway, I get about 18 miles to the gallon. Well, when that, as soon as that check engine light pops up, I guess the truck just tends to run a little funny, mile per gallon wise, and it drops from like 17 and a half, 18 down to like 15 and a half, 16. So I'm losing about almost 2 miles to the gallon, which might not seem like a big difference, but in today's world, you want to get all that you can take. You feel me? So I'll be swapping that out. And that's the only code that this truck has, believe it or not, for an 06. I believe that's really good. Also, this pan, right? This whole rectangular pan, 1, 2, 3, 4 bolts, 5, 6, 7, 8 bolts. Hold this pan. Sorry, 5. There's 2 more in the back that I can't see. They're a little dirty. So 5 bolts and 5, that's 10. There's a gasket under there. This is called the valley pan, I believe. And there's a gasket under there, which I've also seen other YouTubers talk about. These bolts in the back, they've noticed that these have been loose when they break them, just to try to replace the gasket since they do have an oil leak. And they notice that these 2 bolts in the back are slightly loose. So maybe over time they wiggle out and start to cause a slight oil leak. Could be the gasket is fine. It's just, again, these back 2 tend to get loose over time. But I'm gonna go ahead and double check that these are tight before I start breaking them, just to kind of inspect everything, guys, as well. I'm gonna be troubleshooting. I'm gonna put a torque wrench on that oil pressure sensor, see if it is torqued to spec, about, I want to say 15 or 20. So I'll double check on that. If it's not torqued to spec already, then that could be the culprit. This, I'll see if there's any back there. There's no oil leaking, because that could be the culprit. And also these 2 bolts, if they're loose. So yeah, guys, this is all the work that I'll be doing. Let me show you the parts real quick. Here's the intake. This is a valley pan gasket. I'm going with Felpro as well for the intake manifold gaskets. These are my 2 knock sensors. And in here, I believe it's the oil pressure sensor. Yeah, oil pressure sensor. This is the cam sensor. That's the part. Here's a part on this one, part on that. Part on that. Sorry guys if they're upside down. This is the wiring harness for the knock sensors. There she is. So yeah, guys, these are all the parts I'll be using. And before I start all this work, I'm gonna get all this surface area prepped and clean, and then I'll be doing my inspection like I mentioned. All right, guys, so here's a close-up view of the back area with the camshaft sensor and the oil pressure sensor. Like I said, I just want to kind of show you how it looks back there to see if you have some similar symptom. All right, so here's kind of how it's looking after scrubbing it down for about 20-30 minutes. So with the 10mm socket, go ahead and remove the oil pressure sensor. This could have been the culprit. Just seeing how that mating surface looks pretty dusty and oily and grimy, and that's the connection. I did notice a little bit of oil inside the connection on the sensor itself. So not entirely sure if it was slowly leaking through the sensor, if that's even possible, but again, that's how that looks. All right, guys, so I got this torque wrench sent to 20 foot-pounds. So I put it on and I kept going with it to tighten it up, and it turned quite a bit, guys. So I do believe this was loose, because now it's clicking at 20 to 21 foot-pounds. So this could have been the issue to the leak, but like I said, we'll see. I'm gonna go ahead and remove it and just do everything else. Here's how that looks with the oil pressure sensor removed. This is how my knock sensors look. I was getting a code for bank 2, which I believe is the back one. This one looks pretty nasty, but the connection's okay. Look at this one. That'll do it, guys. All right, y'all, so it's day 2 of putting in this work for my for my 5.3, trying to fix this oil issue. So I've already loosened these bolts right here, the 10 bolts that go on the valley pan cover. So I'm gonna take those bolts out, remove that valley pan, change the grommets or the seals in there for the knock sensors, and just kind of give it a good clean, and we'll check it out right now. There's oil on most of these bolts, and it keeps getting worse as I take the back ones out. So I'm gonna take out those two, the back two, and then see how those bolts look. But yeah, this gasket might have been on its last leg. All right, y'all, this thing is on here pretty tight, so I'm using one of these little plastic tools. All right, y'all, look at that gunk that was sitting in the back of the truck where I was getting the knock sensor 2 low bank input code, the P0332. It was my rear one, not the first one, but the back one. Look at all that nastiness. Look at that. So here's a comparison to the bank 1. I mean, look at that. Straight nastiness. Okay, so I'm gonna give you guys a big pointer here on changing out these grommets that go in the valley pan. Unfortunately, no one really on YouTube explains this at all. There was this one gentleman. I'll see if I can post his info down below. You know, I'll put the timestamp and whatnot, or where I got his video from. But even that gentleman just didn't explain. He didn't take any videos or explain thoroughly how he removed these grommets for the knock sensors. So let me just show you how a new one looks. So here's the new one. Now you might be asking yourself, like I did, how the hell do these come out, right? That's the old one that I took out. Does it come out this way towards you guys, the camera, or do you have to punch it out through that hole and it come out through this backside, right? So I didn't want to fuck shit up, and that gentleman did describe somewhat on how to take these off, and he said he had to hammer them out and pry them off with a screwdriver. So I tried punching this one in. I don't know if you can see here. I put some licks on that with this mallet and this socket extension. I just put this here like so, and I started tapping away, and I noticed it wasn't moving anywhere. It was just bending inward. So I said, you know what? I think this grommet has to come out towards us. And of course, I looked inside. As you can see, there's kind of a lip where it's right here. There's a lip. I'm touching it with my nail, and that's where it's making contact and it's bottoming out as I was hammering it. So I said, let me just pull it out towards us, right, the camera. Here's an old one. This is pretty much the leftover metal that's in here, because mine, when I pulled it out, all the rubber was pretty much half gone, and I tried scraping it off thinking that was a way to change them out. But then I grabbed a new one, and the metal puck is inside as well, like this one. So I said, you know what, this is gonna have to come out. So what I did was, this is in here, right? For example, this was in here. I grabbed this and I slowly put pressure, and I picked up like this, and I went all the way around until it came loose and it just popped. So that's how you change out these grommets, guys. Hopefully this is a thorough explanation. Like I said, I have not seen anyone really change out these gaskets. My truck has over 200,000 miles, 209 to be exact. So I'm changing these out because these are trash. Hopefully this helps. Let's get on with the video. Morning, guys. So it's day 3 on working on my truck. I'm finally cleaning everything up, making sure everything's good to go to start putting things back together. But I did notice something very crucial. Where the grommets go, let me show you. So where the grommets go in these 2 holes, right? There and there, I noticed there was 2 little rings, and I didn't know if that was part of the that section there. This is what I'm talking about. This is what's left over from that grommet. If it's caked on there really good, it was pretty much like this. It was left in there like that. But of course it was halfway in there. I had to push up from the right, front, left, back, and slowly wedge it up. It took me damn near 10 minutes trying to get both of these out. Used a pick. That's what worked best for me. Okay, so valley pan gasket is on, as you can see on that little blue seal right there. Cleaned up all the bolts before I put them in, cleaned the threads. Of course, I put all of them just hand tight, whatever I could do hand tight. And then my pattern was, I started from these 2 center ones, so you can push all the pressure outward. So I just put a wrench on these, socket wrench on these, just kind of give it a little hand tightness, and then work my way these 2, and then those 2, and then the back 2. I did like 2 rounds of that, just hand tight. Not even tight, guys, just like a little snug. Once you kind of feel it kind of bottoming out, just stop. So I did that 2 rounds, and then I got my torque wrench, and I set that to 12 foot-pounds. So I started off at 12 foot-pounds and did the same pattern. I went this way, 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 that way, and that way. Kind of like a crisscross pattern somewhat. I don't know if that's the right way to do it, but I don't think it'll be catastrophic. So I did 12 foot-pounds, went up to 14 foot-pounds, and then I did 18 foot-pounds twice, just to make sure it's all nice and snug. Everything is good, set here. I'm gonna go ahead and put my sensors back here. Remove all that that paper film that I put, just so nothing falls in there. All right, y'all, day 4. Working on this truck here, trying to change out all these sensors and whatnot. So I ran into an issue using a deep socket, just your standard Pittsburgh 1 1/16 deep socket. The issue with this, trying to torque up that oil pressure sensor, is this is too thick. The thickness of this, right? This right here, where my nail is to my finger, is just too thick to fit back there. It's gonna rub where that bolt is, but you're gonna have to get you a true to size oil pressure sensor, deep socket style, and that's a nice flush fit. Like, it barely rubs back there, as you can see. The other one that I had that I just showed you was rubbing right there. I don't know if you can see where it was grazing, right in there. That's where it was bumping in, and it wasn't letting me. So this is what you're gonna need here to continue and do this job. Now, I've seen anywhere from 15 to 22 foot-pounds on this torque. I'm gonna do 20. Let's just go ahead and torque that up. No extra. That should be good. I got the oil pressure sensor torqued down to 20, put back the connection. I cleaned up the connection. I noticed this connection as well as the camshaft right next to it, both were a little bit oily. I didn't get any codes thrown for those, so I'm pretty sure the wiring should be fine, but I just cleaned them up. Also put back the bolt for the cam sensor. I didn't torque that down to anything. I just, you know, made it hand tight, went with it. So let's go ahead and put back knock sensors, which will go here and here. And both holes do have new grommets. So let's get started with that. Okay, I'm gonna show you important crucial part into installing these knock sensors. So as you can see, I have my good one right here. You want to test these before you install them, because if you install some bad ones, you're gonna have major problems to try to swap them back, right? You're gonna have to take everything off and put everything back in. So you set it to ohms right here, and these have a spec for ohm reading. I'll put the chart down below. I got it from a gentleman off of his channel. I can't forget the name, but what you want to do is get your positive, insert it here in this hole, as so. Insert it in the hole. Now with your negative, touch the base, like so. And if you can see that number, it's reading 99.1.2, so that's very consistent. It's not jumping around anywhere. So this one's pretty good. And I'm gonna test them before I install them, just so I make sure that they were good right before they went in. Now I'll test the second one. All right, 99.5.6, so that's pretty consistent. And I'm going with Duralast, guys. I'm not choosing AC Delco. Personal preference. These were a little bit cheaper, so. Now this was a knock sensor that was good, which is bank 1. It was in the front of my motor. When you're looking at my motor, this was the one closest to me, bank 1. Let's test this out. To just show y'all how the readings on a bad one. Let's say my bad one, I'm sorry. This one wasn't throwing me any codes, but as you can see, this is about 120, 121. Again, I wasn't getting any bad codes thrown for this, so I'm guessing this is still pretty safe zone as far as ohms. 120. Sorry, it jumped up because I lost connection with the red, the positive. But that was sitting around 120, as y'all saw. Now let's check the terrible one. This was the one that threw me codes, as you can see. It's nasty as hell. This one spat 120, same as the other one. I think this one went bad because the connection was terrible. So I don't think there was a connection being established anymore. It might have gone away with it, just like this one. But look at the connection for that one. When I pulled it, I don't even think it was on at all, guys. This is the back one. This was still pretty nice and clean. So just a tip for y'all with these knock sensors. Hope that helps. Knock sensors are installed, both bank 1 and bank 2. Bank 1. Bank 2. I didn't put any thread sealant, locker, or whatever, or any Loctite, simply because I want these to make good connection, and I just haven't really seen anybody talk about adding either one. So yeah, torque these down to 15 foot-pounds. I've heard these are pretty sensitive. If you over torque them, you could make them give, like cause the sensor or whatever internally to kind of mess up. I'm not too sure how accurate that is, but hey, take it for what it's worth. Wiring harness is in now. I've seen people put some type of bead around the edges for water intrusion, just to make sure when water runs down through here, it just goes around through the back end. Like I said, I've seen people do it, some people don't. I'm not going to, because I've noticed that these rubber covers, they're pretty tight to put in, so I believe it's going to be a good fit. And you know, with heat expansion and whatnot, I think it'll be fine, guys. And I believe this is how they come from factory, if I'm not mistaken. So like I said, do as you please. I'm just showing you what I'm doing, but I'm not going to put none of that. That's just extra time and money that I gotta worry about, and I don't think it's that big of a deal in my opinion. But let's keep moving on. Okay guys, moment of truth. I know you guys are finally waiting for the final results for me trying to fix that oil leak that I had on my 06 Silverado. And my other issue was the knock sensor. Since I had the truck, knock sensor code has been on, and it's a pain in the ass to try to get that code away for good, because knock sensors can go bad. You could have a bad wiring harness. You could have issues with the the ECM module next to your battery. You got to unplug it, and sometimes the harness itself can kind of go bad on those pins where they connect for that actual cable. You know, there's plenty of issues that can go wrong in knock sensor, so it's kind of hard. And so I put everything back together on my truck. Everything went great. My only issue was on the Pro gaskets for the intake manifold. I'm pretty sure I showed you all the part number. Scratch that, guys. I tried to use that gasket and it was just like half an inch too long. There's 3 clips where it's got a clip to on the intake manifold. One end clipped, the middle one clipped, and then the far end was just like half an inch, like, you know, just a little longer than the one that was already on. So I decided to not use it. It won't even fit, so I went back with the one that was already on the truck, and it seemed like it was in good shape. So used that. I've had no issues overall. I cranked the truck up. Everything worked as it was supposed to. I believe about a day or 2 later, I had to crank up the truck and drive to work. I drove roughly about 10 hours. I drove out here to West Texas, and no issues, guys. Still had the leak. That did not fix it, so I believe it's gonna be a rear main seal issue on my truck. I tried just about everything that I could. So yeah, leak is still present, but I was able to get rid of that knock sensor code, and now I don't have a check engine light. It did not pop up after clearing the codes on my truck. Previously, when I try to bypass the code, when I try to bypass the knock sensor with the picture I showed y'all previously, with the diagram on how to clip the wire and, you know, tie it into the other one, that was still throwing the code even after clearing my truck. I would drive it on the highway to work and it would be fine for about an hour and a half, 2 hours. But the moment I had to pull over and pump gas and turn the truck back on, that code would come back after 10-15 minutes. I guess it reset itself and kept reading the system and the codes, and eventually popped it back up. So yeah, guys, I'm glad I don't have I was pretty bummed out after turning on the truck in my driveway and it was still leaking. I was pretty pissed about it. I told the wife, but you know, she gave me some good advice. She said, hey, all the things you're doing to your truck, it's making it better, not worse. And you did clear your code, so you got to think about the positive. I said, you know what, you're right. So I said, I did the best I could. At this point, I'll just probably have to take it to a mechanic to fix that rear main seal, because I don't think I'm willing to do some. I'm not willing to do a test like that, drop the transmission in my driveway and try to put the seals together and all that good stuff. I'd rather just take it to a certified, trustworthy mechanic. So yeah, guys, that's my final update on all the work that I did for the video I just showed you. A lot of work. Hopefully I put this video the best way I could for y'all to understand. If you guys have any questions at all, don't hesitate to, you know, give me a shout in the comment section down below, and I'll see you on the next one. Peace out.